Welcome, Exiles! There's been a lot of Blight farming strats and guides going around recently, and I'm super happy to see Blight finally getting the recognition it deserves. However, all of these strats didn't quite scratch my loot explosion dopamine itch that I got in Phrecia, and since Blight scarabs have been exploding in price, I decided to get to work and see if it can be pushed to the same heights as it was in Phrecia before they get even more expensive, and I think I succeeded. The loot is absurdly good, and it takes about 5 minutes to complete the encounter. You get about 500k gold from each encounter, very good XP, and a ridiculous amount of currency, maps, uniques, scarabs, eye level 86 bases, and pretty much everything else. But there is a downside, and it's that you need an extremely strong character to run it consistently without dying or losing the pump. GGG has actually done a lot of good performance improvements, and the game won't crash like in Phrecia, but it will still be very laggy, and your screen will be having a complete seizure during the encounter if you can't kill stuff fast enough. With that being said, let me show you the setup. I'll start with the scarabs, and I'll explain why we're using these specific ones after. We'll be using Blight Scarab, Blooming Scarab, Invigoration Scarab, Bloodlines Scarab, and Glittering Scarab. Blight Heart is the bread and butter of all Blight Encounter strats. Since we're chasing Cassia loot explosions, we don't really care about the chests all that much. And Blight Heart will add a truckload of monsters to the encounter, which will contribute to the loot explosion. Not only does it add normal magic and rare monsters, but it also adds extra bosses. Since Blight Heart adds extra bosses, Blooming Scarab is a no-brainer. It will turn up to 3 lanes into boss lanes. They won't be pure boss lanes, and there will still be random trash mobs spawning from them, but there will also be a truckload of bosses, which will massively contribute to the overall loot pool. Invigoration Scarab is basically where all the juice is coming from. This scarab makes Empower, Smother, and Imbuing Towers give Blight monsters in range a toughness, rarity, and quantity multiplier. So the more monsters we can kill inside the range of any green towers, the more loot we'll get. Bloodline Scarab increases the amount of magic monsters that will spawn in the Blight encounter by 150%. This not only adds a massive amount of extra Blight monsters, but is basically where around 70% of the gold is coming from. Glittering Scarab is a bit of a flex choice. It provides up to 400% increased rarity as long as you can keep killing monsters. But if you struggle to stay alive from the start to the finish of the encounter, you can swap it to any other scarab that you like. Next up, the Atlas tree. It's a fairly standard tree focusing on taking percent effect of map modifiers, quantity, rarity, and some map sustain nodes. And since we're doing Blight, we'll be taking most of the Blight nodes. Now, right off the bat, something you might have noticed is that I'm taking a bunch of these mechanic blocking nodes because they also make it so scarabs from these mechanics can't drop. This is pretty important since we're dropping a lot of scarabs, and the scarabs from these mechanics don't really cost anything worthwhile, and this way we increase our chances of getting better scarabs by a large amount. For that same reason, we'll be taking Trapping Carapace notable so that we increase the chance of dropping Amber Scarabs by 100% for the juicy containment scarabs. Another important notable is Blight Spawn. This notable by itself is the sole reason why the loot is as good as it was in Phrecia, if not better. This notable makes one lane spawn only bosses. This combos very well with Blight Scarab since it will make it spawn a ridiculous amount of extra bosses. Amplified Artifacts increases drop chance of scarabs by 50% from rare monsters per each modifier that they have. We're taking Epidemiology to make our single chest lucky and for the 20% chance for the chest to be openable again. This is mainly for the off chance that we get a currency blight or scarab chest because this notable will significantly boost the overall loot when that happens. Significant Troves is another must-have notable. It increases the chance for bosses to drop scarabs by 200%. We have a crazy amount of bosses, so this is pretty much a no-brainer. We're taking Immune Response for the 50% more non-unique Blight monster spawns. However, if you're getting overwhelmed too often, you can skip out on this passive since the downside of it is that monsters spawn 100% faster, which makes the encounter quite hectic if you can't keep up with it. Templar Ingenuity is very nice to have. The salvaged rewards are surprisingly good and contribute a decent amount to the overall loot. You just have to make sure to upgrade all of your towers to level 4 before killing the last few Blight monsters, and try to have at least one of each of the chill, stun, and empower towers at level 4, since each different type of tower will contribute a lot to the salvaged loot. And last but not least, Remarkable relics. We're getting a lot of scarabs, so having them be less common varieties is a no-brainer. That covers all the important tree passives, and the rest of them are self-explanatory. For the ring anoints, we want to get 1 Empower Tower range and 1 Chill Tower freeze. If your character is Giga Strong, you can opt into skipping the Chill anoint and instead go for another Empower Tower range anoint. If your character is struggling to keep up with the encounter and you need just a little bit of an extra push, you can swap out Empower Tower range anoint to Smothering Tower increased effect anoint. Let's talk a little bit about maps. I'm running this strategy on T17 Sanctuaries because I believe Sanctuary has the best layout out of all the T17 maps. It gives the most consistent amount of 5 or more Blight portals. And for this strategy to work, we kind of need multiple Blight portals, since that'll give us more mobs and more towers, meaning more loot. We'll still occasionally get Blight encounters with 1 to 3 lanes, but that's just the nature of Blight. You can't really do anything about that. I'm adding 3 Fine Delirium Orbs for 60% deli on my maps, since that adds more quant and rarity to the map. But if 60% is too much, try and do at least 1 deli orb, since adding any layer of delirium will give all rare monsters an extra delirium mod, which will provide us with more scarabs from rare monsters thanks to amplified artifacts. Keep in mind that deli mods can sometimes be deadly, not necessarily for you, but for the Blight pump. One of them, for example, will teleport monsters on top of you, so if you happen to be standing on top of the pump, you will instantly lose it. When we roll our maps, we're aiming for at least 100% more currency or scarabs, since that will get scaled up by all the percent effective map modifier mods from our tree. But obviously, the most important thing is for the mods to not brick your character or the Blight Encounter. Stun immunity, ailment immunity, and monster move speed cannot be modified below base value are all mods that you must skip. Other than that, I would also highly recommend that you skip Rare Monsters Have Volatile Cores mod and Rare Monsters Are Shaper Touched mod. Trust me, you do not want to be dealing with those. Also, you can run the strat in tier 16.5 originator beach maps, but I personally like doing T17 Sanctuary since I can comfortably kill Lycia with my build, and she drops a few expensive uniques, and of course the expensive Uber boss fragments. Finally, I want to talk about tower placements real quick, because good tower placement is key to not only completing the encounters, but to also extract as much loot from them as possible. When the encounter begins, the first priority is to assess the amount of lanes we got. If we got unlucky with 4 or 5 separate lanes, rush to build a chill, stun, and single empower tower near them on every lane, and try to upgrade them as fast as possible so we don't get swarmed. If we manage to get things under control, we can start building empower towers everywhere else. We should also try and cover as much of the Blight lane pathways with smother towers as possible. Smother towers make monsters deal less damage and they take more damage. So it is extremely important that we utilize them if we have sufficient towers. If we get an encounter with 2 lanes, the strat is the same but less hectic. If we get an encounter with 1 lane and multiple portals, that's where we can be a bit greedy. The first few portals that spawn will always be furthest away from the pump, so we can build up multiple empower towers there first for extra loot. Once we see other portals spawning closer to the pump, we drop a chill tower near all the empower towers and run back to deal with the closer portals. We must quickly build chill, stun, and empower tower and smother tower setups there, since the last lanes to spawn almost always are the ones that are chock full of bosses. After that, we have to make sure to cover the entire area with a few more smother towers, and then we can start spamming empower towers everywhere else. We do also have to make sure we keep continuously killing monsters while we build towers, otherwise the lag might start becoming a bit too unbearable. We can leave the bosses for later if they're perma-CC'd, but there is one boss that I would recommend you prioritize killing over everything else, and it's the goat boss. He's immune to CC while jumping around, so if he's feeling nasty, he can decide to jump past our CC choke points and run straight into the pump. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, before killing the last few monsters or bosses, make sure to upgrade all your towers into level 4, ideally 1 of each. That will boost up the loot from salvage chests by a significant amount. With that being said, I think that covers everything there is to say about this Blight farming strategy. This is pretty much the pinnacle of Blight, and I don't think it can be pushed any further with solo play. But of course, I would be more than happy to be proven wrong. Also, I will leave a POV in the description of my current character's build if you guys want to check it out, and I will be making a guide video about it in a few days. If you guys have any questions or recommendations, drop them down in the comments below. I do read and reply to as many of you as I can. If you like the video, and if you wish to see my future Path of Exile content, make sure to drop a like and a sub. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay sane, Exiles.